Look, my name is Dion Bettjeman. I am one of the co-founders and the CTO of Mindhive Global. We build sophisticated AI-powered machine vision-based inspection systems that really focus on inspecting complex materials. And in this case, we'll be talking about what we're doing in leather, but we'll be talking about what we're doing there and how we call a concept that we call verified high data is kind of moving through the value chain, and it's transforming what you can do with it and adding a whole lot of new opportunities along the way. So maybe just some teasers. What if you could eliminate all the quality disputes that you get with your customers? So if you're a tannery producer, this might be for you. What if you can ship whole containers of products directly to your customer sites without going through a whole lot of resorting, shipping them directly from your satellite sites? Again, particularly if you're a large scale operation with lots of different tannery locations and otherwise would go through kind of more of a resorting area. And I guess what if you could cut your reject rates in half, particularly if you're making finished product, without really having any extra burden on top of your existing process? So none of these things are hypotheticals. We've got some people in the room here today that are already doing this with us. But our automated grading solutions are out there right now, processing thousands and thousands of hides per day for some of the biggest producers out there. And we're doing it with really unprecedented accuracy and much, much faster than anybody else can do it. So maybe just we'll sort of put a bit of a frame together for an agenda of what we're going to talk about today. Fragmentation in the leather value chain is something that we see a lot. It's kind of one of the reasons we exist. We're going to talk a little bit about how we're creating verified high data and how that's smoothing through we're kind of transforming quality management and moving through that value chain. And probably a few real examples of how some customers, again, some of them here today, are using that technology to get some pretty major effects and some pretty big changes in their process. And then lastly, kind of what you can do with it and what sort of future of leather trading might look like if you start using this information and pushing it right the way through your value chain. So we're going to talk about this a little bit. So let's just maybe get a definition for what we call verified hide data. So it's a standardized objective quality information about leather hides. And I guess it's pretty key that the objective piece is in there. We generate that through AI-backed machine vision inspection, and it's maintained right the way through the manufacturing process. The key thing for us is that it's a single source of truth about hide characteristics and defects and grades that can be trusted by all parties in the supply chain. I'm going to keep laboring the point about trust, but we'll come back to that and you'll see why. If you want to see how that might work in production, just think of a Brazilian tannery that uses verified hide data, and it's guaranteeing the quality of what it's shipping to its European customers. Every single pallet they ship to the customers, we know exactly what's on it, and it's eliminating the need for re-inspection, and you've got precise fulfillment if you're making containers to order. Again, controversial topic, we'll come back to that in a second. Let's talk about the value chain as it stands now. And there's a whole lot of stuff that sort of fits into this. There's definitely key pieces where we can add some value. But at the moment, there's a lot of stuff going on that's relatively manual. So information is trapped in silos quite frequently. You've got a lot of inspections happening on a number of occasions throughout the production process, but none of the information that's generated, particularly with manual inspections, ever really gets passed on beyond kind of aggregate levels. Per hide level inspection data is lost. You pick the hide up, you chuck it on a horse, done. And you're repeating that without any correlation. So again, there's no handoff downstream. You can't do much about that at a per hide level after you've inspected it. There's some traceability solutions that are out there and they're capturing some origin information, but none of that's really kind of tying through to quality outcomes. So all of that is kind of a whole lot of fragmentation that just means that you don't really have the ability to grow. You can't really do anything with that information, so you're stuck in the old ways. So we're doing things a little bit differently. And I guess we'll start at the raw stage because that's kind of where it makes sense. We're not massively active here, but it is a key point where you can start getting some key traceability information and injecting that into your supply chain. You can get that through air tags. This information is usually disconnected from quality decisions, but it doesn't have to be. At Wet Blue, where probably most of our activity is occurring, we've been doing this since 2014, we are imaging these hides at really, really, really high resolution. We're definitely inspecting the hell out of them. And it's this point where we're seeing the most immediate impact of this verified data concept. We are creating kind of the first really truly standardized grading process that works at scale. And it's providing kind of a foundation or a basis for our customers to do cool things like kind of really understanding what's in their pallets. Now, I'll stand on that one for a second. Understanding what's in your pallets is really important because we see every single hide. We know exactly which pallet you put it on. So through the depth of the pallet, we know where each hide is and what's on each pallet. If you get to that stage, and some of our customers are, you can do really cool things with inventory management. You might have 3 million pieces of leather across your inventory management. We know where they all are, we know what they all look like, and we know what you could possibly do with them. If you're looking to get into the space of custom order fulfillment, so you've got customers coming to you saying, hey, I really want to make a particular thing, I want a specific SKU, I want you to give me a sort of a container of pre-selected hides, we can do that for you. Because we know where everything is, we'll come back to that, that's kind of more of a fun thing. But I guess the key thing here is that if you're making really good choices at this pretty crucial early stage, and again, wet blue is a great time to do that because it's kind of a good commercial balance of what you can see versus what you want to do with it, you can do cool things with your downstream production. It might also be a really good time to think about what you could do with that if you are just a producer, a commodity producer of wet blue. If you're going to drop it out of the process at this point and ship it off to a customer, you can ship all that data that we create with that product. So you can be sending all that information with your container load of hides to your customers. Again, we'll come back to that later on in the conversation, but there's a huge amount you can do with that information at a per hide level that adds value. And you can also do some quite cool things about what to do when you see stuff you don't like. So we've seen cases in the past where you might get a batch come through that's got a hold of hair stubble or hair root, some sort of key problem that you don't really want, but you've got it. You can find a market for that. You can tell your customer what they're getting. You can get premium price for that hide, knowing that defect's coming. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody trusts what they're getting. There's lots of clear transparency there. If you're making good choices at wet blue, you can make really good choices at splitting. You can split things that you want to split into the right level. This is really about laboring this point, about making sure that you have exactly the right material going towards the right end use case. We're also grading in the split stage at the moment. That's coming up very shortly as well. If you've made good choices in blue, good choices in split, now you're starting to see things in crust that should be there and not stuff that's not. We know we see a lot of customers at the moment who do this manually, and they get to crust and they think, no, I've got this product that's not going to make it through to where I want it to be in finished leather, but I'm kind of screwed. Now it's here. Good choices earlier on result in much better utilization of your raw materials. And you can trace quality issues back. So if you're seeing quality issues in your product line, you can keep carrying them backwards to figure out where they're coming from. It's either you, your own production, or it's your suppliers. It's really interesting at finished. So finished technology was a product we're just about to release. This is coming to us very soon. It's giving us, our customers, the ability to really look deeply into their hides. So we have another system that's roughly 4 times the capability of our wet blue solutions, but functionally the same thing. Looks at the same level, but much higher resolution. And it lets us do fully automated surface inspection of finished leather. We can do it at full production speed. We're running at about 15 seconds a hide, but it lets us do deep inspection to the specifications of your customers. That's really important if you're, a lot of your products are going to automotive. It's an automotive use case. Automotive providers typically set those expectations around specification for you as a tannery producer if you're making finished leather. We can compare what's on your hide against what the natural features guides are in terms of requirements for customers, and maintain all of that data flow back through where the product came from, at the same time as automating the entire process for what you can do with that. All the historical data from early stages can kind of help identify process improvements. We can pick apart what we'd call inherent defects, things that were already on the cow, lifetime stuff, and separate them from things that have shown up along the way. And you can look through that and say, hey, there's machine damage, there's contamination, we've got problems here in our process, and you can really accurately identify, map, and track how that's performing as well. So you can make good choices about what you're doing in your own production really quickly. Turnaround time for that's in real time. And if you're making this sort of product across multiple sites, so you might be a large South American provider cranking out finished leather to spec across multiple locations, every single site running our grading technology is doing exactly the same thing. Once you put our systems in, configure them with the criteria that you care about, we'll just keep doing what you tell us. You don't have any of the subjectivity of any of the drift of humans. You're not constantly retraining. We will just keep doing what you tell us. This is a key difference between what we do and how people operate. I'm sure there's a lot of people nodding going, yeah, that sucks. And we can spit out these big reports. So we have lots of data that comes out of the back of this that can go with your shipment. So if you're shipping the product, it's not your problem anymore. It's going off to be cut. You can provide all of the data that we produce, if you like, and again to the level of granularity you choose, to your customers. So again, it kicks back all the claim issues. Every single hide has a big record that goes with it. Nobody is really sort of complaining or whinging about what they've got because everybody's in agreement about what's percent. If you're a consumer of this, if you're an end user or cutting your own leather, you can do some cool things with the data as well. You can trust that the quality verification before the product even arrived was correct. You know what's coming. If your supplier is shipping you product and you're getting that information before it arrives, you can start planning before it gets out of the container. The defect maps that we make when we map these hides are so detailed that you can use them directly for nesting. So you can eliminate all of your markup, all of your quality assurance, and you can go straight to cutting if you like. So we've already got a detailed pipeline where we can pipe that information directly across to nesting applications and then straight into CNC cutting. Nobody's put any chalk on any hides. You don't have whole rooms of people marking this stuff up. It can go in one seamless flow. There's traceable quality data, so you can go back and see what choices were made. And if that's important to you for your production process, that information is natively streamed in. It comes in with each record as well. And I guess you can reduce and I guess ideally eliminate all of the ingestion sorting. So if you're receiving product, it can go straight into inventory. You don't necessarily have to be looking at it again. So all of that kind of works through when you get rid of all of the knocking down the stuff that might otherwise have been segmented and isolated at different inspection points. You get like a big loop. So you can take your information from start to finish, and you can make sure that your material is going through all of these steps without really ever getting stuck, and no information is getting dropped out along the way. You can make really clever choices about your production. So if you're trying to make really clear decisions about what to put where, you've got all the information you need to kind of map that out and make really good, smart choices about it. And you can make sure that your customers who are buying product at a very specific spec are getting exactly what they want, and you're meeting those criteria all the time really consistently. So that's really rapidly kind of what that is. So let's talk about kind of again how we're doing it. So we have, particularly in our wet blue systems, we're doing up to 360 hides an hour. That's the sort of artificial limit because that's as fast as anybody's been able to feed a ringer. If you can go faster than that, awesome, we won't be the bottleneck. We're doing about 25 plus different categories of defects at the moment. That's always growing as we move into new regions. We see new types of defects or new variants of defects and we spin them out into their own little classifications. We're sitting at about 91% accuracy on the defect level. So it's key to understand that defect accuracy is everything. You have to see the defects to be able to make the grades. Everybody has different classification criteria. Every single customer of ours gets exactly the same model, but what your rules are and your criteria are not shared. They're all yours. We understand them, we ingest them, we spit out grades, but defect detection is key. If you can't see the defects, you're not going to do a very good job of grading stuff. And we do it within about 4 seconds. So that's how we can run at full production speed. So we can feed our information directly into things like auto stackers, downstream automation without having to slow anything down. I guess the real power though is that you can use all this information and you can sort of really transform at scale. So it's good thinking about this at a per hide level. You know, you've eliminated sort of the subjectivity of people kind of making poor decisions and slowly drifting over the course of a day. But if you apply this to massive scale, if you've got large scale operations, you can do cool things. So Tasman Tanning was one of our long-standing customers in New Zealand, have done some amazing things with us in terms of R&D, have a couple of our machines. They've had some pretty significant impacts to their operation by making really, really good choices early on. So they've seen a 50% reduction in downstream reject rates on their finished product. Obviously that's optimized hide allocation because they've put the right hides into the right finished SKUs. You kind of get a free boost in throughput because you're not making overage or you're not sort of having to bank on the fact that your humans might have screwed a few things up along the way, which ultimately means that you get a better yield from premium quality hides because those are identified and put into the right SKUs along that way. It gets really fun when you start going big. So our focus at the moment is in South America. We're rolling our system out to some pretty big players down there. And there's some pretty big things you can do if you're operating across large groups of sites with, say, satellite production with tanneries that are all over the show in regional areas, processing down to things like automated sorting centers. So traditionally, you might be sort of sorting at source, humans doing their thing, and then boxing it all up and sending it across to a sorting center, undoing it, having acceptance testing, and sort of going through and resorting based on what you need to do to fill a customer order. You can get away from that now and eliminate all those steps by just imaging it once. So everything happens at the satellite sites. We can image all of your hides at each satellite site where they're produced, grade them to whatever specification you like. If you like and you have one that's quite close to a distribution location or a logistics location, you can fill containers with customers' specs right there and then at those facilities based on what your customers' criteria are by having it done on site. If you don't, and you want to bring all this material into your distribution centers, you can get rid of this huge amount of resorting. So everything coming in we know about. We know what's in the tanneries, we know what's on the trucks, and we know what's in your distribution centers. Again, you can have 3 million pieces of hides currently in a tannery, and if you want to look through that and say, hey, I've got an application where a customer wants a specific SKU or a very specific grade profile, we can almost instantly look at every single piece of hide in your inventory and say, these are the ones that fit those criteria. These pallets are the ones that are the most effective for your application. So we can aggregate multiple pallets from multiple locations, and you can trust that all the grading and selection of every single one has been perfect. Once you understand where your grade compositions are, you can track them across your inventory. That's quite interesting. The custom pallets based on customer recipes are quite key, and I'll jump into that now in a little bit. We've got customers who are asking for very specific SKUs, and the traditional sort of fear in tanneries is, what if I get stuck with the C's and D's and E's, and all my customers only want the A's and B's? The reality is that's not the case. So you can get customers who have very specific profiles. They want to make very specific products, and they will pay a premium just to get a container of what they want and nothing else. That doesn't mean that there aren't markets for the different quality profiles, and you can cater to that without any of the traditional overhead of doing that. You don't have to dig through your hides to find those things. Give us the specifications that your customers are asking for. We will look through your entire inventory and find exactly where all those hides are. Mostly that's at like a whole pallet. We'll tell you which pallets to put in a container because they have the most gold, or it's at a per hide level if you want to get really specific, but not many people go down that path. The key thing is you can do all of that without putting any of your inventory at risk, because we know where it is. So you can still work through the remainder stuff, find markets for that, and move on. And there's a little bit more, and you can do just from a value creation point of view. So you have that sort of guaranteed consistency with objective evidence. This is really pushing this trust piece back. You can give your customers all of the information they could possibly want. It takes away the requirement to have any grading, any claim pushback. Customers who have ordered product from you with a container on the water know what's coming. They can start planning their production before it even gets there, as long as they trust that what they get out of the container is going to match. So that's ship product consistency, and you can reduce disputes all the way as long as you have trusted documentation flowing the whole way through the supply chain. How this was done in the original way with humans, I guess we'll sort of really jump into this one, is that, as you remember, at the back of every ringing line you have somebody who's standing there processing hides one at a time, trying to implement some sort of consistency when it comes to how they grade based on what you told them during their training, whenever that was. And some customers are retraining all the time, but we all know that there's a significant skew and bias in humans. We've seen humans doing crazy things like making choices when it comes to grading about what they think the next step needs, never having worked downstream from their location. In bigger solutions, there'll be huge amounts of resorting in the distribution center, which is massively labor intensive, and the customer inspection piece becomes a problem. If you're selling hides to a European customer, it's quite common for them to send somebody to you to pick through that and kind of shoulder surf you guys as you're going through the inspection process, which is an annoying sort of hassle, and I guess adds to a lot of overhead. You can get rid of that as well. And then resorting at customer sites is painful. There's a lot of ingestion. You got to pull those hides in, put them into inventory, and then try to remember where they all went. All of that goes away. If you can bring a product in and you can inspect it at the point it was produced, which is exactly what we do, and you get the digital map of all the content on those hides straight away on a per hide basis, you don't need to go through any of that resorting. You don't need to trust a human. You get into any of the foibles of human variability. And you can, if you like, ship that product directly to site or directly into production from those satellite sites and skip the whole distribution center model altogether, which is something that we're actually starting to see now. I guess the transformation is the quality is flowing differently through the value chain, and it's going to start changing the way that you trade and sell hides. The tannery run mixture has been somewhat skewed and moved around a little bit, but ultimately it's sort of what you get if you're a customer. But now you can say, hey, I really want to have X, Y, and Z parameters or priorities in my leather, and you can deliver that without it being a complete sort of tornado through your inventory pile without any extra labor. How do we do this? What do our machines look like? They're tiny, so they're designed to fit on top of your stuff. So we've been designing these things to fit over the back of ringers or over the back of outfeed conveyors for years. They're tannery proof. It takes us about sort of an evening of downtime to actually drop it in place. Over the week of installation, we do all the rest of the integration. We don't modify any production lines, so we don't have to just spread things out. We sit on top of whatever you have. So we scan and map the existing site, make our frames wide and tall enough to fit, and then it just drops over the top. They're fully tannery proof. We have spent hours water blasting them and doing horrible things to them, and they just love it. So there's no issue with the environment. They're designed to be built for the space, knowing full well the sort of levels of capability tannery operators have. And we run at full speed, so we've never ever slowed anybody down. Again, the record so far is 360, but if you can go faster than that, you'll get the prize. We will never slow you down. And the information that we produce goes straight into your ERP or production systems. We're pretty radical when it comes to open data. If we make any information as part of working on your site, specifically production information, it's yours, and we never hold that back. So we'll do whatever we can to get that into your systems as easily and efficiently as possible. It gets kind of fun, and this is what we're seeing now with people wanting to track things on a per hide basis, and this is going to talk to a little bit the traceability piece. If you want to integrate with laser marking systems, we absolutely can. Sometimes we drive them, sometimes we listen to them, it doesn't really matter. All we need to do is record what number was put down on a wet blue hide specifically and tie that to the grading profile that we create. That's awesome, and it kind of gives you the sort of a traceability piece from that wet blue stage. There's argument as to whether that works or where you want it to be, but you can do cool things with figuring out where your product is in your palette. So if you're getting to a stage where you're picking out particular hides, you can scan that traceability code or pump it into one of our little free apps, and you can see everything there is to see about that about that hide. And you can pass that information on to your customers if you choose, to whatever level of granularity you like. You don't have to expose the entire thing. You can really pick and choose what you show on a per hide basis, but it's all available. It obviously gives you a verified chain of custody because you can see when that hide was scanned, provides you a whole lot of information, and we store all that information in what's called an immutable database. It's not ours, we can't mess with it, we can only add information to it, we can't change it, so it becomes this kind of trustable reference of hide records. And it pipes natively into your traceability and your compliance documentation. So again, we expose everything through APIs or whatever medium you like. Some people want them faxed, doesn't matter. If you have the data and you need the data, we'll give it to you, and you can pipe that directly into your documentation chain without any admin headaches or any pain in that space. I guess so. What is it doing, and kind of where's the future impact of this? Quality management becomes quite fun when you can do data-driven management. So if you know what you have, sure, this is getting boring. You know what you have, you can figure out what you want to do with it. So if you know what you have early, you can make all the right choices about what you're going to do with it down the track, and the results speak for themselves. You wind up with just what you want and much less of what you don't. The seamless integration with traceability and compliance requirements is good, but that's a big part of it as well. You can change the way you trade if you're brave enough to do this. 4 or 5 years ago, when we first sort of rolled this out, a lot of people were freaking out about the idea of what am I going to do when I start telling my customers that they can have pre-selected or pre-graded hides. That's now becoming the norm. And if you can utilize this in the right way, you can sell exactly what your customers want for a premium because they don't want the rest of the crap they used to get in the container. That suddenly makes sense, and if it doesn't require a huge amount of pain and suffering and admin and labor to do it, why wouldn't you? There's a whole lot of redundant quality checks that can go out the door. You don't need to keep re-inspecting it because you know what was on each hide and you can recall it straight away. You sell a little grading station if you're doing that sort of thing. You scan the number on the hide, bam, all the information is right there in front of you. And your direct distribution models that you just couldn't do before are now available. How it messes with your, I guess, sort of supply chain evolution is that you can used to be disconnected from all this data, but now you can really reuse your resources. Surprisingly hard to say. There's a whole lot of collaboration models you can have with your customers, so you can be really transparent with what your customers want and be open to what their demands are, because you don't really have to put a barrier up of can I deliver this or not. There's massive sustainability improvements if you don't want to move these products around. If you want to drop ship them from satellite sites, you can. So it's a whole lot of miles and energy and stuff that isn't being used. And you can start getting towards the industry-wide standardization, which is quite key. We've had customers coming to us saying, I can't wait until this is the standard, or this is the standard way this is done, because there's so much less friction involved with this going forward. And they're all happening against the backdrop of changes we just heard about just now. So sort of the deforestation regulations are coming in. They keep getting deferred, but they're on their way. Having information to hand and having lots of information to hand to help support your claims and back yourself up becomes really useful. Automotive customers in particular are starting to require, I should say, significant amounts of detailed quality inspection information. And there's a growing pressure for sustainable and efficient processing. So if you're not putting the wrong product into the wrong end use case, you're saving energy, chemicals, all that good stuff. This is kind of becoming not really an operational, sort of advantage. It's kind of a requirement. If you want to start being a bit of a market leader, you have to start thinking more about where the data is in your process and what you're going to do with it. So I guess that's kind of driving better decision making. We've talked about, the traditional quality assessment being subjective, and I'm sure anybody who's run a tannery in here, particularly a finished tannery, knows that there's just this huge amount of fluff you have to build around the fact that you just can't really trust your humans to make good, consistent decisions. They're just humans. They're kind of doing their jobs all day, but it happens. They're not robots. We're robots. So the AI-powered element just really sort of takes away all the subjectivity and leaves you with just objective data. And objective data can be trusted data, which is super key. You can standardize it. You know what you're getting. Again, I'm laboring. You know what you're getting. You can make a good choice about what your downstream product's going to be. And you can move that information through without really having all of the admin or any admin. It's all fully automated in our systems. You're getting rid of redundancy. So if you're taking this through big distribution centers, there's none of that anymore. The information comes in, it can be routed straight into your production process without anybody having to re-inspect and re-inspect and re-inspect and restack. And you can make great choices about what you're going to do with it, again, at scale. We have a couple of customers that are running with more than 3 million hides in inventory at any one time. We know where they all are and we know what's in them. And you're not making wasteful products. So if you've taken a product all the way through to finished, and it's not suitable, particularly in automotive, it's often a bit of a paperweight because it might be to spec, it might be IP around the color. If you put it there and it was part of your overage, it's now waste. And commercially, you can do some cool stuff. So you can start targeting markets that you could not get to before. So if you were trying to deal with smaller players who had very niche applications and it was in the too hard basket, with all the automation that you can do around fulfilling custom orders, that becomes something that you can start to entertain. Obviously, and you get the right price for those products. So if you can price confidently based on what you're selling your customers, knowing that they're getting what they want and you know what you've sold them, you can command a premium for your product and no one's going to push back on that. And through that, you get past this trust thing. So the leather industry has been built on kind of a big lack of trust for a long time. Nobody has been keen to trust that I'm just going to believe what my suppliers say and I'm going to get what I get in the container. Neither of you have to trust each other anymore because a third party, someone like us, is providing all this information to back up your claim as to what you sent them is what you think it is and what they think it is. And we've seen already in market huge reductions in claim activity because of that.